And the first verse, you're a broken down has been. God's message on the Ammonites. Doesn't Israel have any children? No one to step into her inheritance. So why is God Milcom taking over Gad's land, his followers moving into its towns? But not for long. Time's coming, God's decree, when I'll fill the ears of Rabbah, Ammon's big city, with battle cries. She'll end up a pile of rubble, all her towns burned to the ground. Then Israel will kick out the invaders. I, God, say so, and it will be so. Well, Heshbon, Ai is in ruins. Villages of Rabbah, wring your hands, dress in mourning, weep buckets of tears, go into hysterics, run around in circles. Your God Milcom will be hauled off to exile, and all his priests and managers right with him. Why do you brag of your once famous strength? Your broken down has been, a cast off who fondles his trophies and dreams of glory days and vainly thinks no one can lay a hand on me. Well, think again. I'll face you with terror from all sides. Words of the Master, God of the angel armies. You'll be stampeded headlong with no one to round up in the runways, run up the runways, runaways rather. Still, the time will come when I'll make things right with Ammon, God's decree, strutting across the stage of history. The message of the God of angel armies on Edom. Is there anybody wise left in Teman? No one with a sense of reality? Has their wisdom gone wormy and rotten? Run for your lives. Get out while you can. Find a good place to hide, you who live in Dedan. I'm bringing doom to Esau. It's time to settle accounts. When harvesters work your fields, don't they leave gleanings? When burglars break into your house, don't they take only what they want? But I'll strip Esau clean. I'll search out every nook and cranny. I'll destroy everything connected with him. Children and relatives and neighbors. There'll be no one left who will be able to say, I'll take care of your orphans. Your widows can depend on me. Indeed, God says, I'll tell you, if there are people who have to drink of the cup of God's wrath, even though they don't deserve it, why would you think you'd get off? You won't get off. You'll drink it. Oh, yes, you'll drink every drop. And as for Bozrah, your capital, I swear by all that I am, God's decree, that the city will end up a pile of charred ruins, a stinking garbage dump, and obscenity, and all her daughter cities with her. I've just heard the latest from God. He sent an envoy to the nations. Muster your troops and attack Edom. Present arms. Go to war. Ah, Edom, I'm dropping you to the last place among nations, the bottom of the heap, kicked around. You think you're so great, strutting across the stage of history, living high in the impregnable rocks, acting like king of the mountain. You think you're above it all, don't you? Like an eagle in its area. Well, you're headed for a fall. I'll bring you crashing to the ground, God's decree. Edom will end up trash, stinking, despicable trash. A wonder of the world in reverse. She'll join Sodom and Gomorrah and their neighbors in the sewers of history. God says so. No one will live there. No mortal soul moving there. Watch this. Like a lion coming up from the thick jungle of the Jordan, looking for prey in the mountain pastures, I'll come upon Edom and pounce. I'll take my pick of the flock. Who can stop me? The shepherds of Edom are helpless before me. So listen to this plan that God has worked out against Edom, the blueprint, what he's prepared for those who live in Teman. Believe it or not, the young, the vulnerable, mere lambs and kids will be dragged off. Believe it or not, the flock, in shock, helpless to help, will watch it happen. The very earth will shudder because of their cries of anguish heard at the distant Red Sea. Look, an eagle soars, swoops down, spreads its wings over Bozrah. Brave soldiers will double up in pain, helpless to fight, like a woman giving birth to a baby. The blood will drain from the face of Damascus, the message on Damascus. Hamath and Arpad will be in shock when they hear the bad news. Their hearts will melt in fear and they'll pace back and forth in worry. The blood will drain from the face of Damascus as she turns to flee. Hysterical, she'll fall to pieces, disabled like a woman in childbirth. Now how lovely, bereft, abandoned, the once famous city, the once happy city. Her bright young men dead in the streets, her brave warriors silent as death. On that day, decree of God of the angel armies, I'll start a fire at the wall of Damascus that will burn down all of Benadad's forts. Find a safe place to hide. The message on Kedar and the sheikdoms of Hazor who were attacked by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. This is God's message. On your feet, attack Kedar. Plunder the Bedouin nomads from the east. Grab their blankets and pots and pans. Steal their camels. Traumatize them, shouting terror, death, doom. Danger everywhere. Oh, run for your lives, you nomads from Hazor, God's decree. Find a safe place to hide. Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, has plans to wipe you out, to go after you with a vengeance. After them, he says, go after these relaxed nomads who live free and easy in the desert, who live in the open with no doors to lock, who live off by themselves. Their camels are there for taking, their herds and flocks easy picking. I'll scatter them to the four winds, these defenseless nomads on the fringes of the desert. I'll bring terror from every direction. They won't know what hit them. God's decree. Jackals will take over the camps of Hazor, camps abandoned to the wind and sand. No one will live there. No mortal soul moving there. The wind will blow away Elam. God's message to the prophet Jeremiah on Elam at the outset of the reign of Zedekiah, king of Judah. This is what the God of the angel army says. Watch this. I'll break Elam's bow, her weapon of choice, across my knee. Then I'll let four winds loose on Elam, winds from the four corners of the earth. I'll blow them away in all directions, landing homeless Elamites in every country on earth. They'll live in constant fear and terror among enemies who want to kill them. I'll bring doom on them, my anger-fueled doom. I'll set murderous hounds on their heels until there's nothing left of them. And then I'll set up my throne in Elam, having thrown out the king and his henchmen. But the time will come when I will make everything right for Elam again. God's decree. The book of Jeremiah, chapter 50, verse 1. Get out of Babylon as fast as you can. That's a sermon. Get out of Babylon as fast as you can. The message of God through the prophet Jeremiah in Babylon, the land of Chaldeans. Get the word out to the nations. Preach it. Go public with this. Broadcast it far and wide. Babylon taken. God Bel hanging his head in shame. God Marduk exposed as fraud. All her god idols shuffling in shame. All her play gods exposed as cheap frauds. For a nation will come out of the north to attack her, reduce her cities to rubble, empty of life, no animals, no people, not a sound, not a movement, not a breath. In those days, at that time, God's decree, the people of Israel will come and the people of Judah with them, walking and weeping. They'll seek me, their God. They'll ask directions to Zion. They'll set their faces towards Zion. They'll come and hold tight to God, bound in a covenant eternal they'll never forget. My people were lost sheep. Their shepherds led them astray. They abandoned them in the mountains, where they wandered aimless through the hills. They lost track of home, couldn't remember where they came from. Everyone who met them took advantage of them. Their enemies had no qualms. Fair game, they said. They walked out on God. They abandoned the true pasture, the hope of their parents. But now, get out of Babylon as fast as you can. Be rid of that Babylonian country. On your way. Good sheepdogs lead, but don't you be led. Lead the way home. Do you see what I'm doing? I'm rallying a host of nations against Babylon. They'll come out of the north, attack and take her. Oh, they know how to fight, these armies. They never come home empty-handed. Babylon is ripe for picking. All her plunderers will fill their bellies, God's decree. You Babylonians had a good time while it lasted, didn't you? You lived it up, exploiting and using my people, frisky calves romping in lush pastures, wild stallions out having a good time. Well, your mother would hardly be proud of you. The woman who bore you won't be pleased. Look at what's come to you, a nothing nation, rubble and garbage and weeds, emptied by life, by my holy anger, a desert of death and emptiness. Travelers who pass by Babylon will gasp, appalled, shaking their heads at such a come down. Gang up on Babylon, pin her down, throw everything you have against her. Hold nothing back, knock her flat. She sinned. Oh, she sinned against me. Shout battle cries from every direction. All the fight has gone out of her. Her defenses have been flattened. Her walls smashed. Operation God's vengeance. Pile on the vengeance. Do to her as she has done. Give her a good dose of her own medicine. Destroy her farms and farmers. Ravage her fields. Empty her barns. And you captives, while the destruction rages, get out while the getting's good. Get out as fast and run for home. Israel is a scattered flock, hunted down by lions. The king of Assyria started the carnage. The king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, has completed the job, gnawing the bones clean. And now this is what the God of the angel armies, the God of Israel, has to say. Just watch. I'm bringing doom on the king of Babylon and his land, the same doom I brought on the king of Assyria. But Israel I'll bring home to good pastures. He'll graze on the hills of Carmel and Bashan, on the slopes of Ephraim and Gilead. He will eat to his heart's content. In those days and at that time, God's decree, they'll look high and low for a sign of Israel's guilt. Nothing. Search nook and cranny for a trace of Judah's sin. Nothing. These people that I've saved will start out with a clean slate. Attack Merathaim, land of rebels. Go after Pekah, country of doom. Hunt them down. Make a clean sweep. God's decree. These are my orders. Do what I tell you. The thunderclap of battle shakes the foundations. The hammer has been hammered, smashed and splintered. Babylon pummeled beyond recognition. I set out a trap and you were caught in it. Oh, Babylon, you never knew what hit you. Caught and held in the steel grip of that trap. That's what you get for taking on God. I, God, opened my arsenal. I brought out my weapons of wrath. The master God of the angel armies has a job to do in Babylon. Come to her from all sides. Break into her granaries. Shovel into her piles. Burn her up. Leave nothing. Leave no one. Kill all your young Turks. Send them to their doom. Doom to them. Yes, doomsday. The clock has finally run out on them, and here's a surprise. Runaways and escapees from Babylon show up in Zion reporting the news of God's vengeance, taking vengeance from our own temple. Calling the troops against Babylon, anyone who can shoot straight, tighten the noose, leave no loopholes, give her back as good as she gave, a dose of her own medicine. Or brazen insolence is an outrage against God, the God of Israel, holy God of Israel. And now she pays her young strewn dead in the streets, her soldiers dead, silent forever, God's decree. Do you get it, Mr. Pride? I'm your enemy. Decree the master God of the angel armies. Time's run out on you. That's right. It's doomsday. Mr. Pride will fall flat on his face. No one will offer him a hand. I'll set his towns on fire. The fire will spread wild through the country. And here's more from the God of angel armies. Thank God for Jesus, because these Old Testament prophets, especially Jeremiah, is nothing but negative. There is no message of restoration. It's simply negative. That's why Jesus came, because this is something else. And here's more from the God of angel armies. The people of Israel are beaten down, the people of Judah along with them. Their oppressors have them in a grip of steel. They won't let it go, but the rescuer is strong, the God of the angel armies. Yes, I'll take their side. I'll come to their rescue. I'll sue their land, but rough up the people of Babylon. It's all out war in Babylon, God's decree. Total war against people, leaders, and the wise. War to the death on our boasting pretenders, fools, one and all. War to the death on our soldiers, cowards to a man. War to death on our hired killers, gutless wonders. War to death on our banks looted. War to death on our water supply drained dry. A land of make-believe gods gone crazy, hobgoblins. The place will be hunted with jackals and scorpions, night owls and vampire bats. No one will ever live there again. The land will reek with the stench of death. It will join Sodom and Gomorrah and their neighbors, the cities I did away with, God's decree. No one will ever live there again. No one will again draw breath in that land ever. And now watch this. People pouring out of the north, hordes of people, mobs of kings stirred up from the far places, flourishing deadly weapons, barbarians. They are cruel and pitiless, roaring and relentless like ocean breakers. They come riding fierce stallions in battle formation, ready to fight. You, daughter Babylon. Babylon's king hears them coming. He goes white as a ghost, limp as a dish rag, terror-stricken. He doubles up in pain, helpless to fight like a woman giving birth to a baby. And now watch this, like a lion coming up from the thick jungle of the Jordan, looking for prey in the mountain pastures. I'll take over and pounce. I'll take my pick of the flock. Who's to stop me? And the so-called shepherds are helpless before me. So listen to this plan that God has worked out against Babylon, the blueprint of what he's prepared for dealing with Chaldea. Believe it or not, the young, the vulnerable, mere lambs and kids will be dragged off. Believe it or not, the flock in shock, helpless to help. Watch as it happen. When the shout goes up, Babylon's down. The very earth will shudder at the sound. The news will be heard all over the world. This is the word of the Lord. But again, thank God for the New Testament and restoration through Christ.